Hello everybody, welcome back to the Jeep Journals, where I typically ramble on and on about whatever comes to mind. And for whatever reason, you're joining me on this journey, and you're joining me for probably a specific purpose, because the more you listen to this, the more you understand that I'm not rambling on and on, that I'm not ranting. This isn't a manifesto. This isn't any kind of higher learning that you yourself could not participate in on your own. In other words, when you sit still for long enough, when you're at peace for long enough, you begin to recognize certain truths. And the truths are that peace is peace, love is love, and to fight over the definition of it all is quite humorous. And I'm pausing because I'm looking ahead of me. There's a vulture flying around. There's another one that's taking to the air. They're just doing their thing. And I'm sitting here at a red light enjoying wildlife while I'm also consciously aware of the lights in front of me. What color are the lights? Where is the sequence of lights? Is it time to go? Am I following the Simon Says rules enough? The light turned green. Did you see me look left to right to make sure there was no oncoming traffic? I'm not just absent-mindedly, randomly rambling off knowledge. I'm giving you examples that help you to think each time you're listening to these opportunities to share knowledge with one another. What have you learned during the course of time to make you have a more successful outlook, a more successful chance of accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish? Well, for me, it starts with the fundamentals. Health is wealth. When we eat better, we regenerate ourselves better. When we regenerate ourselves better, we ache less. When we ache less, we are able to accomplish more. When we're able to accomplish more, you get that joy down in your heart. And it's something that you cannot fake. There are a lot of people faking it till they make it, but I'm here to burst your bubble right now. You ain't gonna make it if you never try. You can fake it for your entire life, hating the things that we are becoming together and individually, or we can actually do something that's a little bit more true to character and true to source, true to self. You know, you can attribute things to a higher power in terms of doing the right thing. Doing the right thing should make you feel good. When doing the right thing makes you feel good, you aspire to accomplish whatever it is that was set into your path to accomplish, because you know you're there to help one another. As I move about this area, in any area that I'm about to move about, I basically just put together the things that make sense. You know, today I'm selling something on eBay. It's a super camera. I was gonna associate it with a monetized word, a word that had to do with money. It's a super camera. It's an amazing camera. It definitely is one of those things where, if we think in terms of monetary aspects, it's one of those, well, you get what you pay for. This is very true. And it is also super impressive to capture those images that are priceless with that camera. And in so doing, you're able to share your joy with the world. I'm sharing my joy with the world. I'm selling a camera that is a super camera. And right now it has I can't remember what the brand is called, but it's kind of like an armor suit that's around. It's made out of a rubberized material around the camera. It's been protecting it since the day I got it. It was a very complex item to put on, because you have to stretch it just a certain way, and also do so with care so that you don't rip open this protective device that goes around. It's like an OtterBox for those of you with any kind of phones any kind of mobile devices of the current era. And for anyone who's watching this in any other era, it's basically a protective thing that goes around the thing that you cherish because it's doing something for you. Now, the camera that this is on is basically it's a tank in itself. It's weather sealed, which is amazing because I took a lot of pictures in adverse conditions, and the only quirk that I have is that most L series lenses are weather sealed as well. Some of the exceptions are the zoom telephoto lenses, like the 100 to 400 millimeter lens, which I'm also selling on eBay right now, that is not weather sealed in the same way. So it's kind of to me, it's a quirk that there's an inconsistency in terms of what you can pair together that's waterproof and what weak points we introduce when we don't entirely ensure that the whole system does it all hold water? Does it all repel water? Is it watertight? I don't know how many different ways to say it, except for at some points in time, we want to do our homework and verify. Trust but verify. So as I talk about these topics of synchronicity and how I'm not rambling on, how I'm touching on topics where you're going, wow, the light turned red, green, but he looked left to right to make sure there was no oncoming traffic. And he was able to remember that he was talking about things that we're sharing to help our days move along with greater levels of success. These are all truths, and when people hear truth, they like it. This is something you can absolutely rap with this. You can understand. You can rhyme with it. You can trust and verify, because you can do it yourself and go, I feel better. I ate better. I slept better. I ached less. I got more done. Truth is truth. Love is love. Peace is peace. When we fight over how something is said, even though all of us who are communicating right now, whether we choose not to respond, which is still a response, or whether we respond, we're communicating right now. And in those levels of communication, I understand some people want to pause. They feel like maybe there's a confirmation, this thing is dinging. Do you guys hear the synchronicity that I talk about? Like when the fan turned on and then I turned it off? I was talking about a fan. Sometimes I wonder, do you hear the dinging? Does that make people feel like I'm demeaning something that's just chiming in? We all need to be chiming in so that we're fully aware of what's going on around us. Right now, I'm not even on adaptive cruise control. I'm manually piloting this. I see the vehicle in front of me moving over. I'm letting off the gas. I'm increasing my car lengths in accordance with my own response time, with the conditions of the road, knowing how dry it is and how unlikely it is for certain wildlife to intrude on the traffic of this day here. I haven't seen a roadkill on this part of the loop that I'm on in quite some time. In other areas, especially where I'm not familiar with them, a big giant piece of tire just went by. I just daftly swept aside just a little bit, almost defying logic. It's almost like it was instantaneous response time. And those kind of things, even for moving targets, I wish you guys could see what was in front of me sometimes. I was literally just threading the needle there with something that was flying on the road debris. With these changes come an immense amount of capacity for concentration to be absorbed, to be used up, to be redirected. But does the mind ever retrain to the fact that we were talking about? What are we talking about? Do you remember? We're talking about rambling on, synchronicity. We're talking about the law of attraction, however you want to call these words by, whether you meditate and make yourself up into yoga poses, or whether you pray and actually do some exercise, or, and here's the kicker, whether you do none of the above. None of it. You don't exercise, you don't meditate, you don't pray, your high blood pressure is going through the roof. There are certain things you can do to help yourself remind your physical being what truth is truth, peace is peace, love is love actually means. And what that means is unconditional. Unconditional means whether it's seen good or bad, the thing is chiming, the detector is chiming. It's chiming for truth. Whether we are experiencing something in the wavelength of good or bad sometimes has to do with how we see things, doesn't it? Is it good for all of us to manifest every single thing that we want? Always, without any delay, without any sacrifice, without any gratitude? Probably not. We're coming up on another pre-gurgitated set of holidays and experiences that we will practice with or without our fathers if we decide not to recalculate and adjust our trajectory accordingly. If we want to continue doing the same things, running into the same issues, understanding that we're going to come up with the same shortcomings, understanding that these fixed incomes are going to have to change to allow other people who have less than fixable incomes to also experience the things that we are luxuriously just kind of coasting through. I'm talking about myself when I talk about these things. So if you feel any burn, don't worry. We've all got to burn a little bit for the things that we've caused. And we all will, you know? And I mean that in a multitude of ways also. It's not a hypocritical, judgmental, elemental even way. It's just there are things that I'm burning some gas right now. There's a result. There's a consequence. I can see the gray, blue sky, the construction workers that we zoom by. I can see the absence of roadkill. I can see the abundance of growth going into what's possibly going to become another dry season. I can see that we are either tending to our gardens and that which is around us, or it's becoming overgrown. What happens when something becomes overgrown and unruly? Can you imagine trying to put out a fire in a national forest? Can you imagine trying to do something like that with already limited resources, where drinking water it's being in stage something or another drought restrictions? Can you imagine doing all of that while also excessively going and doing business as usual without ever changing trajectory, without ever recalculating, without ever saying, man, this isn't really rambling on, this is 100% truth. This is sharing tips. And at the same time, we're all right. I mean, isn't it hypocritical for me to go and take pictures of things in the wild if I'm out there taking a toll, using those resources? Is it hypocritical, or did I ever in my past bring back some knowledge to help talk about wildlife and conservation? Did I ever talk about nature and wellness? Did I ever talk about anything that made us go, this cat's rapping at me with some stuff that I can rhyme to. I can get down with that. I can resonate with what's being said there because it's true. So now we have to backtrack and go, well, which parts are we feeling judged on? If I'm doing something where I'm judging somebody, let me be the first to ask you, help me to see what I'm saying that might be offensive. Is it the pictures that I use? Is it the websites that I reference? Is it the fact that I talk about synchronicities when stuff like stickers fall apart and so I replace them with another sticker? Is it talking about Eddie and referencing some other family adversities that we've overcome together? Where is it that we judge, where it becomes so difficult for us to talk fully? Where does it become where we're sharing too much information? And where does that judgment really where does it begin? Is it in the foods that we're eating? Is our food truly our mood? I've reached out to people that are much smarter than me, even having the name smart. And for whatever reason, we don't sync up in time. And sometimes we don't sync up in time because, well, we've already got our stuff settled. You know, we want to help people that deserve it. We want to donate to the places that have good intent. To the salvation, non-militarized location stations. We want to be able to merge into a full amount of traffic, knowing that we can make it smooth for one another. Listen back to some of these videos, play them on random. I bet you hear one about traffic. I bet you hear one about how we either slow each other down or we put our signal on when we see someone else wanting to do something. And then we share the insight that they're putting their signal on so that we can all accomplish what it is we want to accomplish more efficiently. I think it's like a fun puzzle. The more I can move into the equation of good, well, the more good that's going to come out of that. How is it that we can want good for one another and sometimes not want good for ourselves? By that, what I mean is, why, when something makes us think and challenges us to grow together, can we look at that very element and go, that's not for me. I don't want to do anything new. I just want to do the bare minimum. What kind of life do you suppose that we will have lived throughout time when we all roadblock one another, doing the bare minimum, never hearing the message that's sent in any format? In no case have I put out videos where I'm trying to put anyone down. In no case have I felt currently, again, you might have to enlighten me, in no case have I felt as if I'm demeaning any segment of society. I'm including myself as someone who has been and who could potentially remain in the state of addiction for my entire lifespan if I never heard something from someone else that allowed me to accept responsibility into my heart. You can call it by a number of names of love, of thoughts. The question is, are you judging how I'm saying it? Confirmation. I just saw it was either a small deer or a coyote. I'm on the outskirts of this city right now. By outskirts, what I mean is wildlife is contending with graveyards. There's a graveyard right here. With graveyards and all the people like me going into nature here to walk on these trails. While I'm not seeing deer or coyotes in this park, I do see the signs of some of these animals. And I also see that during the middle of this workday, there are quite a number of passersby walking these trails with me. Some of them not even using the insight that these are homes for wildlife. What have I tried to show you? When I see wildlife on this channel, when I see wildlife in this world, I try to share it on this channel. If you're not seeing a lot of wildlife suddenly, and you know that any of my business was basically driven by wildlife and nature, if you're not seeing a lot of wildlife and nature, and you see me selling off all of my camera gear, you got to start wondering, it's like, do we really worry about the condition of a camera that's been under a rubber suit forever since the very day that it was received? Or do we get the gear that calls to us in our heart, use it, and share a story together? If we're not sharing a story together, then what's the point of anyone even getting a camera? I mean, what are you going to be sharing? What are you going to be sharing with whom are you going to be sharing when there's no one left to see these pictures? And why spend money on the equipment anyway? See, so somewhere in there is someone who believes that they're seeing things that they want to take pictures of. I'm just kind of adding to it the quandary that I myself, who used to photograph wildlife and nature all the time, I'm either turnt. In other words, I'm either so bad of a person that I can't even see wildlife. We know this isn't true because I still see wildlife and rare wildlife, and I have those rare encounters that I do share with you, which are completely different from most of the people who encounter wildlife. One time recently, I got to take pictures of a bobcat. Someone I know said, they asked me if I had a weapon with me when I did that. They asked me if I was ready to put down that animal. I guess that comes natural to some of the people who we thought we resonated with. I guess that comes natural to put down something of beauty, even when it allows us the rare glimpse of it. I guess that's in our nature, to put down those things that we don't understand. Where's the curiosity in our segment? The curiosity that allows us to have conversation together. And a lot of people will think they know who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm talking with everyone here. Everyone here in this community participating in any way, whether it's not clicking on anything but just being a constant subscriber, whether it's not sharing but totally hearing everything that's being said, whether it's not clicking on the thumbs up even though it's totally deserved, whether it's not even wanting to hear this person but you're hearing because you think I might be talking about you. When I talked about turning on and off a fan, or a fan turning on and off, when I talk about this radar detector dinging when it confirms that there's a radar signal being emitted, it's not confirming anything else. It's confirming that there's the presence of radar. But when I go and add to it the possibility that there's a car that's parked a little closer to their line than they should be, and I'm taking a spot that I probably could have avoided, but it's life. We got to put up with the errors that we're making around one another with grace. In other words, everyone is going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to let us down at some point. For me, as I go on these walks and take in a little bit, sometimes less and less refreshment and optimism because there is less and less wildlife. Some people will say, well, it wasn't the right time. You need to go at dawn and dusk. It's not the right month. It's not the right this, that, and the other. And they'll say that every month of the year for 4 years straight. I'll tell you, as one of the most dedicated advocates for wildlife and nature, I just want to enjoy my time in peace, seeing those things, bringing it to people in ways that brings a smile to our face, and or in ways that enlighten us to do better. When we know better, we can do better. When we learn with each other, we begin to know better. And you know, it's like we do not live on bread alone. We don't. There's no food that's going to satisfy the true hunger that we have when we're absent-mindedly trying to distract ourselves through another hour of time, through another half hour of time at a time. There's nothing else that's going to satisfy that craving except for a good dose of truth. And for some people, they can't handle the truth. Not right then. It's not until we recognize that we might be in trouble that we ask out for help. Some people might call that prayer. It's not until we sit still long enough to really introspectively look into the recesses of our mind and go, what is it that causes me this type of response? Some people might call that meditation. It's not until someone disassociates from those automatic regiments that we used to adhere to every day, because that's what we needed to wake up. That's what we needed to get our day started. That's what we needed to actually do something. When we get to a point where we rely on something else to do something else, that's called addiction. I don't care how you define it. You have to just only think about it to accept, hey, you know, that's true. If I need something to accomplish that good will, good intent, to want to help other people and to want to help myself, self-preservation through holistic preservation. If I want better for everyone so that I can have better, I'm going to get there, whether it's in this life or whatever happens next. I'm not the judge. I can't tell you the mysteries of the unknown that none of us know. I can't tell you if there's a judgment stage of purgatory. I can't tell you if the bodies will raise themselves up out of the graves at a certain point in time. I can't tell you any of that except for when I walk past you on the trail and say hi and you say hi back and we have a conversation. That's magic. That's magic. It's not black magic. It's not dark magic. It's not evil. It's being in the presence of one another without rambling, without ranting, without rhyme or reason. Only in my group, you've got rhyme and reason. It's not as random as chaos might lead you to believe. We're all dealt chaos. How do we return that chaos? In better condition or in worse condition? Do my best to bring it to you in the best condition I can. I'm able to accomplish quite a number of really great things. We all are. We all are able to accomplish great things. Recently, I took a guitar to a place that accomplished some great things for me in the past. And I got it back a couple of months later with a big dent in it, some gouges. Smaller gouges. They're real small, but the dent is big. This is a brand new guitar that I put together and polished myself. And someone dented it because there was something I couldn't accomplish. And so I took it to someone for help, and they weren't paying attention. They're not paying attention. I'm not judging. I'm observing, and I'm pointing this out right now, because this is just one other situation where I've had to pay money to some entity, and then I don't even get the consideration in return that's due to me. So when someone pays me money to do something, I do that job, and I specify what that job should be. There are people who would like to take advantage and have you continue to do additional work and additional work and additional work on top of whatever it is that you did. Whether it was at your level of constraints, time-wise, or ability-wise, the fact is that there are some people who will take advantage of what it is you're doing. In a way, we all have. How am I able, out of all the people in the world, how am I able to be the person having this discussion here where it's like, well, we almost got a 2-1-0. That's where I'm from. Are you from the 210? Are you from San Antonio? Well, if you are, welcome aboard. I hope that what I'm saying is not offending you. I hope that you understand that I'm talking about myself, and these things that I see here sometimes make me a little bit perplexed. If you're from the 210, please click on the thumbs up. Say San Antonio. Click on subscribe if you want to help me get to 210. If you're in a different area code that has a bigger number, click on subscribe. Let's get past 210. Let's get past the 210. I'm not overlooking San Antonio. I'm from San Antonio. I have a great knowledge of this city and the things that have happened in it, the things that have evolved over time, the way that I've seen wildlife and nature throughout the entire span of my short lifespan. That was my focus. I only recently got into music to try and tell a story, which is that I've been showing wildlife and nature for a long time in different ways. Some of it might seem cheesy, but again, it's still all basic content that some may not ever get to experience if they have not been in these places at the right time. So I'm putting myself into these places, this vehicle that I just said maybe I don't deserve. I deserve it. I absolutely deserve it. Should I have made better choices in the beginning? Probably. Then I wouldn't have spent so much money going towards the wrong choices. When we're able to talk in peace and communicate fully, when we're able to metamorphosize into that butterfly, when we're able to come through the chrysalis, even then, as beautiful as any of that is, that time is absolutely fleeting still. We go through so much to become this fleeting moment of beauty. Time is the only thing that keeps on moving forward, regardless of how any of us are able to communicate, whether it's over some typical traditional get-together with constraints. In other words, have you ever been met with limitations where someone says, hey, I would love to hear from you. My only condition is conditions. Unconditional means you love the good and the bad, and you understand. You attempt to understand it, and you have the bravery to responsibility to learn with one another so you're able to effectively communicate. Love means communication. If you have a real, meaningful, loving relationship with your creator, you understand every time the butterfly flies by. You understand, hey, I'm sitting here in the air conditioner, but it's like 80 something degrees out. I wanted to give you a view of the trees. You understand the resources that it costs to bring a message to one another. You understand the miracles that happen. Some people don't understand. I'm going to show you this. Some people don't understand how miraculous it is when certain things happen. I went to the coast some time back, and I put my hands in the water. And I asked, dear God, I would love to show our people examples of something that's more sustainable than creating resources by harvesting new things over and over. And I realized that this is going to be kind of funny because this fossilized coral washed up into my hand. If you can look really closely, you'll see a wire wrapping. That's a single strand of copper wire that I tried all of these different openings. There are little tiny holes on this fossilized coral. You can probably see it. I'm trying to figure out, the camera's over here. I'm looking at the screen and not quite, I'm in two different realities at once. I asked, can you give me something I can make into a piece of jewelry? I'd love to show this to our fathers. And I mean that in a respectful, responsible way. What I mean is, Our parents sometimes don't really value something like this as much as something like this. This is another thing that I received while I was out and about on the trails here. I call this trail treasure. This ring was broken when I received it. And so, after thinking about it for a while and placing it here and there and not seeing anything, I really like the pattern on it. It looks like almost like a skin, a reptile skin or something. Haven't I talked on this channel about how nature is something that just brings the most beauty? Anyway, so I put a single strand of copper wire through this channel, this little hole, and it came out over here on this side. And basically, I used wire tools to make a thing that would hold the bail. And then on Etsy, I found a copper chain to match the copper. It's got a different patina now. But this came from nature. I prayed for it while I was sitting in the water, like a child. Sometimes we can start to wonder, where do these things come from? Especially depending on who we're praying to. And then we've got to start asking, are the things we're receiving good? What are they causing? What are they costing? So, again, I was talking about how this was funny. This little pendant was free. The wire cost resources. And then to put it on a chain cost resources. You know, it's kind of like the conundrum. I'm driving this vehicle with formerly having all this camera gear to show you these things that were beautiful, that are beautiful. But who's buying that? Who's buying the artwork? I've had people tell me they want one of my pictures. I'll order it at cost to me. And then they'll never follow up. They'll never pay me for what I paid for. So then you start wondering, you know, like you say, when do I cut off the conversation? When have I shared too much? I'm sharing everything. The good, the bad, the indifferent. As long as we're able to learn from this. I do not mind being the butt of jokes. One time, one of my relatives asked me, do you care what people think about you? Even though they just prior to that had said, I don't care what people think about me. It's like, how can you judge from both sides? If you're in traffic, and there's a car that wants to pass you, are you the one that speeds up to not let them pass you and then you slow down when they're behind you? How is it that you can be in two places at once? You can't. But the ego and the spirit can. And that's why when you start thinking about these terms like prayer and peace and love and holistic and conversations, there's only one thing that will disallow us to have a full conversation. There's only one entity that comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And by destruction, I'm talking about fragmentation. If we're already internally fragmented, how can we ever make our own decision? I'm going to do what this other smart guy does. Let me say that again. If we are fragmented internally, how can we ever make our own decision in terms of which direction to go? And it doesn't matter if I said it a different way. If we are confused about which direction we should go, how do we know that the direction we're going is not out of sheer panic and anxiety? I'll tell you how. The more we do things that increase the agitation level, the more we're introducing ourselves to anxiety. The more we let go, what does it say after that? Let go, let God. Let go of the things that we have the wisdom to give me the wisdom, grant me the wisdom. How are we going to get the wisdom if we're never hearing, if we're never listening for additional wisdom? How will we ever let God if we never let go? If we can't let go of why we can't have a conversation with one another, and what does someone like me do when I've confronted this in person and in words and in videos with somebody? All I can say is I'm not the judge. Narcissism is judgment. Whether we understand it or not, if we allow that to continue to fester in our mindset, we will continue to be narcissists. And I'll continue to be the butt of jokes. That's okay. All publicity is good publicity. I know that we have more than the 210 watching this right now. We're watched all over in many nations. By we, I mean all of us who are participating on here, whether we want to have a conversation in public or not. But to me, if I start to really contemplate these situations fully, and I go, well, if there's a higher power, there's no if. We are all tied into it, and we feel it. That's why every way that it's worded can be a spelling over our own selves. And so the less we think about with hard set rules about what words are, let's take the word gay. Look up the definition in the dictionaries that we had, 10, 20 years ago. It may or may not have changed. But the basic underpinnings of that word can brew conversations that might make someone feel like they're under attack for using words in a country where supposedly we have the freedom of speech. Some people say they could care less. Isn't it? We couldn't care less. If we could care less, that means we can care even less, which means that we care this much. If we couldn't care less, this is the rock bottom. I can't care much less without being, or I just don't even care anymore. If we could care less, then we're spelling ourselves into saying the wrong thing over and over. I could care less about this thing or the other. I could care less. That means that we have a considerable amount of care for that which we are continuing to missay the phrase, the spelling of. There, your, it's basic spelling when we use words that are so ambiguous. So again, I'm not rambling, I'm teaching. I'm teaching the same topic that other people are teaching, and other people are teaching that topic to their own segment. Some segments are massive because it's that broad of a definition, that generalized of a definition. Some segments are increasingly specialized. When you have a specialized segment who's learning together, you can accomplish magnificent things. I've heard that mountains can be moved. But it doesn't just take faith, it takes faith plus action. And sometimes that action needs to be leveraged across the board. So when I talk about, hey, look at your market, see who you're helping, understand what's going on. My market is wildlife and nature. Wellness and conservation go hand in hand with that. So when I talk about wildlife, when I talk about the measures of wellness and conservation and how all of that goes hand in hand, if we're not addictively selling each other everything that we're just grabbing for over and over without ever considering the resources that it's taking to accomplish these tasks, then we start to notice more and more. What animals am I seeing in nature? Who's continuing to bring all these different things to light? Are we bringing these things to light at all? Or are we just continuing to walk through a circumstance where someone else is taking care of the responsibility that we ourselves were entrusted to? Does it get to the point where we're the one fixing a guitar for somebody and we just dent it because we don't even care? We don't care that we're fixing it for someone. Was it someone else moving the equipment around who was careless? When we care more, it's usually because we have a little bit of understanding about responsibility for the things and the costs that it takes to accomplish what it is we're trying to accomplish together. For me, I believe that it's as simple as using the mobile device that I have right now to capture the rest of what this Jeep journey is about. I have a responsibility to say that I've still got my Jeep. It gets me where I'm going. I'd take it in a hybrid if I could. This world has a lot of things to offer. Everyone's dream within reach. For some, it's a mountain. For some, it's a penthouse. And some, it's a house on the beach. That's from a song, I've Still Got My Jeep. I might or might not be paraphrasing it, but it's like, I've got my friends, they hear what I say. They like all the songs that I play. They share all my thoughts, especially nature. And they sometimes hear the things that I say. So, all of these things are true. Then I went green, stopped using plastic, said that less meat is good. I've still got my Jeep. It gets me where I'm going. I'd take it in a hybrid if I could. Less meat is more sustainable. It's a truth. Stopped using plastic. I did my best. I've got some credit card debt right now from the poor decisions I've made in the past. I'm also still participating in the economy here, trying to sell something without producing more resources, even though what I was given, I'd attempted to offer for sale and pretty much been overlooked by our fathers. What I mean by that is I put together a lot of really pretty pieces of art. I think. If I saw some of these things, I would be purchasing them from whoever made it, knowing the story behind that. Washed up from the ocean into your hands, you prayed for it. That's a miracle. What does a miracle cost nowadays? Does it cost prayer? Meditation? Does it just cost money? Money has nothing to do with any of what I'm doing. And that's where people start to phase me out and say that they've got a high stakes, high stress career that supersedes being able to spend time talking logic with someone. The beliefs that we subscribe to first and focus our time on, prioritize, are our addictions. If we believe that we can achieve, we go out there joyfully and do it, we do it. If we're going to be stymied from the moment that we hear a word that causes us discomfort, we're going to have trouble having a conversation. When we have trouble communicating, I begin to use words like prayer and fasting and Jesus and religion and thoughts and spiritualism and law of attraction and, I'm selling a camera, I've got eBay auctions, I love this vehicle, I love this person, I love this idea, I love the sun, I love all of these different things that bring me joy. When we have trouble communicating, we talk more like, I don't know, whatever you want. I don't know so-and-so, but, you're going to be this way every time, so it's a judgment. Whether we can speak the Our Father might be directly proportional to whether we can actually hear and process the words of something like the Our Father. So, without saying it myself, you can look it up, do a Google search, the Lord's Prayer. Look up the words. See if any single line of that is offensive to you. based on today's circumstances and how we were taught by our fathers. Till next time, I'll clarify just a little bit more. We want this to be an hour-long special, don't we? Think about the prayer, the Our Father. Whether you have a specific religion or foundation of truth or not, especially if you don't have a foundation of truth, look at the lines, line by line. Say it with Our Mother if you believe that it's sexist to say Our Father. But if you don't understand the concept of the hierarchy of what we have established as something that we at least can understand, then maybe we will continue to judge things to begin with. But if we are able to just look at the lines, line by line, and break it down in a way that's meaningful, like Our Father who art in heaven. Does that mean our predecessors who have passed on collectively, the energy, the prana? Does that mean one singular source? Does that mean just the source that we know? Does that mean the ultimate source? I don't know, I'm not the judge of it, but the words aren't very destructive. They don't cause anger. What causes anger is anxiety. And when we think in anxiety, we can't even go, Our Father who art in heaven, and think about, what does that mean? Hallowed be thy name. We say your name with reverence. Hallowed be thy name. Let's say that you and I are created in the image of God, our Father. Hallowed be thy name. Hey there, when we walk by on the trails, the other person. You can see it. We can see how we treat one another. When I walk past people on the trails and wave and smile, it's kind of like what I'm doing right now. People look at me and they either make a snap decision to not respond or they respond. Hallowed be thy name. However you're going to treat me, it doesn't matter. I still respect you enough to say hello to you. Do you deserve it? I'm not the judge. Everyone's going through their own circumstance. That person might have had the worst conversation of their life right then. And just the fact that you waved and the fact that they walked by like this, grimacing, snarling, just the fact that they walked by that way might cause pause for them to think, hey, buddy, sorry I didn't say hi. You have a great day too. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes people will come back on the next hike and recognize, I'm going to keep saying hi. One day I might need someone to say hi to me when I'm at my wit's end. Because I've run into a lot of circumstances, especially lately, where people are literally setting the house on fire, burning through the wealth that ever might have been left to the next generation, as if they could not care less about the next generation. They could not stand to hear what even their only child had to say. Isn't that what happened during some era where murderers were set free and other people were nailed for helping to bring health and well-being, mental in particular well-being, to one another? Health is wealth. I don't care if you divvy it up, divide it, trample it. If there's something healthy, it's going to be resilient. It's going to withstand. No matter what we throw at it, it's going to withstand. And it's probably going to come back in ways that are even better than before, without the influence of the things that truly are just fertilizers in the soil. Everything has a purpose. Even the manure that goes into some of the things that are being fertilized for our own enjoyment has a purpose. But even the quality of the manure can change depending on what's being fed to it. At this particular local park, there are no pets allowed. It's been explained to me over and over that if we bring pets in, it's going to leave droppings that are from foods that are not necessarily 100% natural, like the vegetation and animals that come from this area. I can understand that. And that makes sense. What about the foods that we're eating from the restaurants and from the stores? What is it being fertilized with? Can we taste that in the water quality of some of the things that we drink? Health is wealth. Wellness and conservation comes from A, not shortcutting things to begin with, and B, being able to have the wisdom to know what we actually can control and not fretting over the other things. When we have wisdom and we don't express things in terms of control, which is fear-based, we're able to be open to communication. Multi-directional communication. This community is giving us an opportunity right now to have a conversation saying, hey, that guy makes sense. He's trying to accomplish a dream, and he's saying it in a lot of words, in a more meaningful way. Did you see what I did there? Than some of these little snippets of conversation that never really amount to anything, never really blossom into anything beyond that. How are things going to come to fruition if we're not there participating in the nurturing of those aspects that we want to see flourish? So I'm going to go and continue to water my crops, grow my vines. Say hi. There was a dragonfly that just flew over. I don't know if it flew over the top of the car, but it definitely flew around the front of this windshield, and it looked like a golden dragonfly. Whoever I'm talking with today, somebody in there is going to understand that just because there's only one participant doesn't mean that they're wrong. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong if I'm the only one participating. Just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong. And just because I'm right doesn't mean you're wrong. In order to have a conversation that bridges anything, that can allow for possibly a more meaningful solution, we have to have conversation. In order for us to have a conversation, we have to understand that certain things are irrelevant to the conversation. For an example, our own personal judgments are irrelevant. If I only judged that guitar shop for denting my guitar, I would never take anything back to them. I have a wealth of items that I want to take back to them. I just need to have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to giving them their due amount to help me complete the setups of certain guitars. In order for me to participate with my votes to help people to understand what it is that's happening, I think I have to have the money to do that in this economy. If I'm not getting the money right now, that means I'm basically having to continue to put in some work. I have to keep working at what I'm doing. And also, like on another video I saw, sometimes we have too much. What purpose do I have to continue sharing pictures if this is the more meaningful conversation that we're having versus all of the wildlife that I've shown ever on this same channel? If we're not watching those things of wildlife and beauty and nature, well, why are we having this conversation? Are we taking a time out? Am I passing the torch? Is someone else passing their torch to me? Are we passing a peace pipe back and forth? Are we getting offended? Are we getting jazzed up? What kind of energy do you have when you hear these things? Is it like you just did a workout, a mental workout? Because you got to work out that mind in order for things to continue to succeed, to resonate, so that you can go, at the beginning of this conversation, which I started almost an hour ago, it was about noon, it's almost 1, and I was talking about some people saying that I rant and that I ramble and that I use too many words. And there are other people who are listening right now because the amount of words is just enough for us to understand there are treasures being bestowed upon us whether we know it or not, treasures that we can ask for. And still, there is a segment who will not even respond if you handwrite them a letter asking for assistance. So then you just realize even this is a message in a bottle sent out to a subscriber base that's on a massive community that's still currently allowed a limited amount of freedom of speech, which is also monetized and incentivized. So I know you don't have a whole lot of incentive to go out there and do it, but I'm asking, please click on subscribe. Please click on the like if you liked this, if you thought, hey, he didn't use any curse words in this one. Guess I'm not going to judge him for that. Hey, he said something, but even though it sounded like it was for me, he said he was talking about himself. Hey, he said this lesson that if it was meaningful to you, you can bet that it'll be meaningful to someone else. But until there's an actual amount of participation from the people sitting sometimes in the back seat. Are you a backseat driver? That's fine. I'm open to any suggestion. We got any kind of adventure that we could possibly have today that we can have together. If only we would spend just a little bit of time communicating these truths that allow us to see one another for who we are. I'm just the driver. I'm going to get you to where you're going safely as I can. I'm going to factor in everything. If we have an accident along the way, if we have a collision, well, we've got insurance. and hopefully nobody gets hurt. That's really all there is to it. If you feel like you've been hurt, please send me a message, either online or offline or however you want to. In person, let's have a meal if that's what it takes. Also keep in mind that this is going to be an unconditional, open conversation. So if we have trouble communicating the fact that there's something that we're struggling with together, then we're going to have trouble communicating for the rest of the entirety. I'm not going to limit those conversations. Where I might have stopped some people from calling me in the past, you might check again, see if you're still stopped. If you are, maybe it's because we basically still have difficulties communicating past whatever landlocked idea that you're trying to sell to me. I'm not trying to sell anything. Peace is peace, and action is action. And I'm trying to get things done. And so the less that I spend talking about things that are going to be thrown back at me where it's like, I don't want to waste my breath on this, where it's thrown back at me like, well, that's them. I have to live with that. Or I am in this reality, or I have this stressful job. The more that all these things are being thrown to me, it's like, well, why are you reaching out to me to begin with? So I'm only going to limit the conversations that are limiting my time to move conversations forward with anyone else who wants to move conversations forward. In fact, I've seen people check themselves out. Maybe that's what that fan was doing. It's like, I'm turning off a fan. The fan turned off. But I was just turning it off so that the shadows wouldn't keep distracting from the video. The time when the fan turned on was always turning on during a moment of synchronicity, though, just like this radar detector would ding and say, whatever he's saying might be true. Just like when anything flies overhead. It's pretty impressive how when we follow these things to finality, we go, well, he's not really being mean, not to me. Imagine me saying someone was recently punching me in the arm as they tried to jump from my moving vehicle. And the whole reason that this happened was because an older relative was volunteering with me to go pick up this other older relative. And despite all the wisdom in the car and the wisdom of the police force that was there, that I was asking for help, despite all of that, they encouraged us to take this person on a ride that was over an hour long to a location that to get them safely there would have us run into a situation where the person tried to jump from a moving vehicle, struck me until I was bleeding, they acted like a demon the whole way, tried to run from people by crossing over a freeway, robbed a convenience store, almost got run over in a parking lot, almost got into a fight with a female, and then continued to demoralize me in front of the health facility who was having trouble accepting this guy, even though there were cops around us who were questioning the situation and hearing all of what I just said to them. I said the same thing. I said, this guy assaulted me. To get help for someone who is acting deviantly like a demon, to get help for somebody who maybe doesn't want help, might be the downfall of some people. I put myself in jeopardy. So did my aunt. And, I'm sorry for being super specific here, but it's not the first time that I've had people in the seat next to me and in the seat behind them where conversations basically turned into things that don't make sense. The only time when things stop making sense to me is when I start to wonder, are these people, is there an addiction? It's like I know in one case there was an addiction-related outburst. Drug-induced psychosis is what I've heard it called. But not everyone has to use drugs to get to that point of agitation. They're already there. Carrying out the thoughts that are manifesting in our minds is one step away from being in a segment of society where you just can't fit in. You can hear a plane flying over. Maybe you can, I don't know. I can fit into any situation. One person one time told me they were a chameleon. They could fit into anything. They probably could. But they sure weren't comfortable in many of those situations. For me, I didn't really feel comfortable standing in a suit in front of a lot of people saying something. That wasn't my true uniform in my mind. I like to walk around in sandals. I run pretty hot-blooded most of the time. In the winter, I might still be wearing shorts. Every one of us is unique in so many different ways that for us to not talk with some people because we've been associating this segment of people as something that we would never talk. That's a disservice. It's why I talked in one video, in the fans video, about, this other person who talks about manifesting, they're not wrong. And also they may not know that there's a shortage of resources globally that might catastrophically be leading to something that, if we would have just talked sooner about, we would have less struggle overcoming. We'll still overcome it. It's just a matter of how many things are going to be damaged in the meantime along the way. How many feelings are going to be damaged? And how many feelings are just being eroded just enough to where they can be strengthened? So again, I challenge you to look at those timelines and go, wow, I can't believe not only did we do it, but we went an hour and 11 minutes. Right now it's an hour and 9 minutes, just so you know. We went an hour and 11 minutes not doing the thing that we were about to do because we were listening to this rambling, ranting manifesto of someone who needed to do a way better job at singing. You're right. I did. I hope that you enjoy the way that I've been singing with you, rapping with you, rhyming with you, sharing with you, talking about the fact that I'm doing everything I can to monetize the existence outside of the corporate reality that our fathers sold to us almost exclusively like a timeshare, so that we can recognize, hey, we don't need to be paying for that timeshare anymore. Got my own garden to tend to. If I'm leaving nothing but mess behind for other people to clean up, I've got a problem, and I need to be advised of that. In my journey, am I leaving things behind in disarray or messier, or am I picking up the trash, picking up the pace, and doing my best? Only my own creator can judge that. So I'm not the judge of it. I just know what makes me happy and feel productive. Eating well, sleeping well, treating each other well, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.